How often have you heard a prospect say, look, we really love your product, but it's outside of our price range. Can you offer us any discount? Undoubtedly, if you've been working in sales for a while, you've heard that line numerous times. And offering a discount could be a great way to speed up a slow-moving deal. But if you're adjusting price before negotiations begin, then you're doing yourself a serious disservice to both yourself and to the product as well. So instead of caving right away, we're going to run through in this video 4 tried and true responses that you can give to turn around the conversation when a buyer asks for a discount, to turn it around into your favor. Cool. Okay, so Will, what is wrong with discounting immediately? Well, like I said, discounting isn't always a bad thing. It can speed up deals that are getting stuck, and it can give you leverage for reducing perhaps the service that you're offering. But there are 3 very real problems to offering a discount before a negotiation is taking place. So before you get to that part of the sales process. First problem with discounting is the fact that your buyer subconsciously devalues your service. After all, if you're really going to deliver all of the ROI that you've been pitching, why do you have to immediately discount the price? Second, the instant that you propose a discount, you lose some of your negotiation power. You lose this negotiation power because you've taken the price, the biggest variable for your negotiation, completely off the table. And third, discounting starts to shift the focus. In the buyer's mind, you shift the conversation from the value that's being exchanged to the rather more emotional topic of money or finances, of cash. So rather than the buyer thinking about all the impact that you're going to deliver, they're now thinking about what it's going to cost them financially instead. And so with those things in mind, it's important the negotiations on price and discounting happen towards the end of the sales process rather than the beginning of it. So Will, what happens then when a buyer brings up a discount at some point other than the end of the process? Well, that brings us nicely to the 4 word-for-word responses that are going to deflect, turn the tables, and even give you the selling advantage. So the first response when you get asked about a discount is what's called the value probe. And all you've got to do is say this word for word. We can definitely have a conversation about the numbers, but let's first make sure that we're on the same page about our service being a good fit for your needs. So what does this response do? Well, firstly, it reframes the conversation. You buy yourself a little bit of time here as well. If the buyer's bringing you up a discount, they're focused on the price alone. But at this point in the sales process, because we're not at the end of it where we're going to actually negotiate on price yet, you need to be demonstrating value. So explain, what does your product or service do that your competition doesn't? And most importantly, how does it solve your buyer's problems very specifically for them? This is the perfect time to focus on the value side of things as opposed to the expense side of things. It also gives you more time to build that value and stack it up over and over and over and over again before the numbers eventually get discussed. So what additional benefits can you offer that perhaps you haven't even talked about yet? What value can you bring to the table that the buyer isn't already aware of? You want to get all of that nailed before you talk about the numbers and potential discounts. So that's response number 1. Let's look at response number 2. So the second way to deal with your buyers asking for discounts is to answer your buyer's question with a question. So if the buyer asks, hey, can you discount on this or this or this? You might go, okay, well, that's a fair question. Do you see price being a major obstacle in this conversation? And I like to frame it up like that. I was like, oh, that's fair, but do you see price being thrown up in this as an obstacle here? And when you use this kind of tonality, you immediately make the buyer reconsider if they really want the discount or if they actually want to get the deal done. It also pushes the pressure back on the buyer to justify why there should be a discount in the first place. And a quick bonus tip here, notice how I also said, that's a fair question before I responded with my question in return. The point of this extra step is to acknowledge to the buyer that, well, yes, I've heard you, but I need a little bit more information before I can answer your question. This little extra ping stops the question coming across as manipulative or some gross sales technique from the 80s or 90s. And it also helps the buyer feel a little bit more in control, which of course is a great way to keep the relationship on a solid footing. And answering a question with a question leads us on to the next way that you deal with a sales objection along the lines of, can I have a discount? What do your discounts look like? And this is one for if you are feeling brave or you're genuinely confident in your product, your service, and your offering, and especially when you've got a good bit of banter and rapport going with your prospect. So when the prospect asks you about discounts, you respond politely with the question, why? Now, admittedly, this does take some guts, but your buyer definitely won't be expecting it. And as long as you're polite when you communicate it and you genuinely look for an answer back from the buyer, you're not, again, using this as some weird tactic just to throw them off. You're genuinely asking, why would you want a discount? What you're subtly communicating to them is, well, we've talked about the value. You seem like a good fit for what we do. You seem like you're on board. Why are you asking for this discount? And a slight look of confusion can help sell this as well. The point is that you need to look sincere. It needs to be sincere. You need to act like no one else has ever asked you for a discount in the past. You need to be going, yeah, maybe we can talk about it, but why do you need a discount? And the point of this response is to stop the buyer negotiating a discount for the sake of negotiating a discount. In my experience, when I'm working with VPs of sales and small business owners, when we're bringing teams especially into Salesman.com Academy, almost everyone asks for a discount, and I will almost always say, why do you need a discount for this? And the response I get back was, well, I was just wondering, or, hey, Will, I've got to ask these things. You can then shrug that off and just carry on with the sales conversation. So that is discount response number 3. Discount response number 4, you don't have to be quite as brave to pull this one off. It's called the tit for tat. And in my opinion, this is probably the best approach for most sellers. Because with the right wording, when you implement this, both you and the buyer are going to leave the conversation with a layer of extra value. So here is how you do it. When someone asks for a discount, you say something along the lines of, okay, well, I can reduce the costs and essentially give you a discount if we extend the contract, change the tier of service, if you give us a referral, etc., etc., etc. What we're doing here is balancing out the discount. They want a discount, so their level of value in the deal goes up. So we want to balance it back out and make it more equal. This turns a concession because someone has randomly asked for a discount into an active negotiation. And the thought process behind this is, yeah, most of the time, you can give a little on price, but what are you going to get out of things? And especially if you're dealing with a professional buyer, a procurement team, someone who's trained to negotiate with salespeople, someone where you've just got a tough customer, or perhaps you're dealing with a hard-nosed business owner as opposed to some random middle management that don't really care about the costs of your product or service. Or maybe this is where they want to work with you, but price is a major pain, but they can't quite get the funding to get things over the line. This response is your ticket to winning the sale. And if you think you're going to be asked about discounts and you're going to use this tit for tat process, you want to come into the meeting with what's called a BATNA. This is an acronym, so best alternative to negotiated agreement. Your BATNA for most of these conversations is, well, if plan A doesn't work because we are slightly too expensive or they can't afford us, well, what's plan B that we can implement so that we definitely come away from our meetings with something in our hands? We don't just blow the deal because we were just a little bit off on the details. And the reality is that when you drop the price and give them a discount, and then you remove some of the value from the deal that balances things back up, that's your plan B that you offer the buyer. 9 times out of 10, they still want to move forward with plan A and they forget the discount side of things altogether. So there you go, with a little bit of wordsmithing or gentle nudging one way or the other, you can either shut down completely the objection of a buyer asking for a discount, or you can start negotiating with them to get a win-win in place. And if you enjoyed this video, why not click the video that's on the screen right now and continue making selling simple.